You're on mute.
It's okay. You can still do the intro. We're back.
We're back.
You could have did the intro.
You could have. You could have done a silent intro.
You was here. You could have just been like, yeah, we back. No,
Yeah.
you weren't interested. That wasn't your thing.
I mean, you know,
Turn down my sound. I'm hearing that wind or something.
we do what we do. Great show. Last show.
What's
Great
going
show.
on, John?
I
Merry
was in there
Christmas. You
like
said
talking behind the scenes to myself, like,
I heard you talking. I'm like, I don't know why she just don't unmute herself. You ain't got to come to the stream, but you can talk in the background.
you know. Sometimes what I'm saying, it doesn't not need to be televised. Then when she said she was a financial planner, I was like, I was like, oh, you down bad. Like, you have flipped your wig.
But financial planning and going through a divorce is two different things,
Financial planning is financial planning. It is your
right?
financial plan for no matter what stage of life that you are in. So
That's not necessarily true.
you should know better.
That's not
You should know
necessarily
you.
that.
Let me tell you, for me,
Okay, I'm gonna tell you from the perspective of somebody who's been talking to financial planners. When we talk about it, it's just planning for the future, but it's not. It doesn't. It's never inclusive of if you decide to get divorced. They don't even talk about
and I
divorce.
and I get and I get that. I get that, I guess from my perspective is, number one, you are a financial planner, but I'm a woman. I get it. You are a financial planner, and two, it is like she said, she knew her mistakes. It was the prenup, but it's just like, okay, how can I merge these two? How can we merge each other if we're dating for marriage, right? Moving forward. And we happen to shack. Sometimes the shack is just easier. Like your lease may be coming up, his lease may be coming up, and you're just like, okay, why don't let's go get a place. I already know how you feel about it, but I did it in my 20s. I,
I
yeah,
did
I
it
did it
too,
in my
but
20s,
but
and
I did it too. But what I'm saying is, if you know better, you do better, right?
and that was my thing, girl. You don't know better. You should have did better. But I mean, even in the commingling part in the beginning, prior to them getting married, like when me and my ex, we were dating, and I was over the moon. I was so in love with him, and his lease came up. My lease was ending, so I was like, well, why don't we? He asked me to move in, and so we found a place that suited both of our needs. Like you say, I made sure both of our names were on the lease, so no one felt like you could get kicked out, I can get kicked out, or anything like that. I knew that we were going. Well, I didn't know. You talk about marriage and things of that nature, but it's just like for me, seeing seeing marriage and knowing the imperfections of marriage. My mom and my dad weren't married, but they were married to other people, and they were married to other people for a very long time. So I saw marriage in that respect of, the ups and downs, the pros, the cons, the highs and the lows, and it's a lot of compromise. But for me, what I needed from my partner at the time was I needed a certain level of security because I was already jaded by love, the loves that I saw. So going into it, I was like, well, if me having my understanding of credit and buying a home and my mom going through that process, I was like, okay, well, if we are going to get a home, I'm not you're financially secure, I'm financially secure. So the bank is going to need to see that we need an account to say that we are moving together in that in buying a house. So we got a checking account together, and I put my portion of the bills when we was roommates in there. He put his portion of the bills, and that's how we paid it. So when we did get married or wanted to buy a real estate, we had an account that had enough to show our ability to pay, because at that time you couldn't put your rental history
But
on
but
on
check
a
it out.
credit
You
application.
don't even have to have a joint account together to buy a house
Well,
now.
you know, that was different. This was the 99s and the 2000s. And
But
then,
but that's what I'm saying. You didn't know any better.
right,
That's
but I mean, based on the knowledge that I had then, we had an account, but it wasn't something that we were direct depositing in. It was one account, and I don't even think the only bill the money was in there was house related money. And also for me, because he had children, it was we needed life insurance. And I was like, you need life insurance just in case anything happens. And I got life insurance as well, but we weren't the beneficiaries, because, you know, I watch a lot of ID shows. So we weren't the beneficiaries of each other's policy. But I felt like if anything happened to one of us, you know, I wanted to make sure nobody had to fry chicken or fry fish to bury anybody. I just thought that was reasonable. And I was in between jobs, and he got health insurance, and we had health insurance. And those were the things that were important to me at the time. It wasn't a prenup talks or anything like that. And I didn't have a prenup at the time. But when we did split, it was a fair split. I was like you, like, I don't want nothing. Like, I made sure whatever, even the investments we were doing at the time, because we had different businesses, we were doing things separately, but I made sure, like, when we started our real estate business, that he was protected at the end of the day, because I felt like that was a fair thing to do. But when she said share house, her name wasn't on the car, like, oh, where are we
well,
signing?
but they was married though by that time. They was married at the
Well,
time.
we
And
don't
when
know when he got that car. We don't know when he got the car, but
I think they got it while they was married.
yeah,
But when I
I'm signing on some papers.
well,
That's
what
me.
I'm yeah, I wouldn't even be signing on the papers for the
Oh
car
yeah,
either.
I'm signing papers.
No,
I'm
I'm not
signing
signing
papers.
paper on the car.
And you know, I'm not trying to take nobody's truck. I'm just saying for mine, like, me and my ex, we were going through something. You know your person. You know your person's buttons, what you push when they get upset.
And well,
When
that's the thing. She thought she did too.
oh,
That's the problem.
she was. I knew my person, and I
Yeah,
knew
she knew his buttons too until they started going through that divorce, and she was like, I thought we was gonna be able to split everything and just be
like
fine.
I said,
And he was like,
I knew I come from petty people, so I already knew
yeah,
the
and
stuff that
and
was
here's
going
what I'm
down.
saying
Like,
to avoid all that right there, right? To avoid all of that
I
is
understand. I'm just sharing my story.
yeah,
I'm just telling
but
my
would you?
story.
That's fine, but would you do the same thing again in that order?
No, I wouldn't do it in that order. But do I have financial conversations with people that I'm dating? Absolutely. I wouldn't do it in that order again, but I did the best based on our
So
situation back then.
when do you have those financial conversations
Oh,
with the people that you're
I have
dating?
them early. I have them
And
early,
when you say
and I
early,
don't. And
is that the first date? Is that the first week? Is that the first month?
I mean, we're on the phone. Like, I think when people, he did get greedy, Professor Ops, but he was upset as well, and that brings out the claws when they
But
get
what I mean,
upset.
what was he upset because she wanted a divorce because she wanted to travel and he didn't want to travel? That
Well,
happens a lot.
I don't. I mean, I was in it. I was talking and in and out of her story, because there was so much in between. But from what I got, because this was my situation, is that before marriage, they had a plan. They were working their plan, and she started real estate before they got married. However, she did not do real estate full time till she replaced her income. She had a book before they were married, all of that other stuff before she was married. And their plan was for them to do the real estate together. He had some investments and they were doing that. And then he was like, bloop, I'm not doing that no more. So whatever sidebar conversations, whatever went down, he was just like, "Oh, I'm gonna get you. Like, I'm gonna get you. Like, I'm gonna get you. I've read some things. I've looked up the YouTube, and this all belongs to us.
I made a comment on the video. She liked it though.
Yeah,
She
like,
said
and the
absolutely.
girl said it at the end of the day. I should have had a prenup. I should have had a prenup, and it's
But
financial
this goes
planning.
back to the original thing you were saying. When you are talking to financial planners, they are not including divorce in that conversation. They just include you're going to be married, you're married and you're going to be married forever. They do not include, well, what happens in this scenario if you decide to get divorced. They don't include that. They just say, okay, well, what is his income and what does he have put away? Let's look at what you all are doing collectively and how things can move from there.
Right,
They don't include
right,
divorce in that. And
right. It
what I'm saying to this effect is, hey, here's what it could look like married. And if you all decide to get divorced, you may want to take care of this in the marriage just in case. And it's not saying that you're going to get divorced or anything and that. It's just saying these are some things that you may want to consider. Not, and I'm telling you to go do them. I'm just telling you what your options are that people don't think about.
Right.
Uh,
And I definitely get where you're going, but when you love and you young and love and stuff, when people bring up just in case of divorce, and we had this long conversation on the ride back from a financial group that we went to go see, like that divorce, like, the first thing people say is like, you setting us up to fail.
well, if
Like,
you have a prenup, they feel like you're
yeah,
already
like,
trying
I
to
mean,
get
but the
divorced.
word divorce prenup is already associated, always associated with a divorce. But a prenup can also, whatever, it's just like a trust. Whatever you put in based on the businesses that you do, the decisions that you make, it's a framework for how your marriage is going to work. When it comes to decisions, like for instance, they plan on doing real estate for full time. There could have been something in the prenup that said, what if that person decide one of us decides they don't want to do any of that business anymore? What does that look like for us? And like she said, it's risk management. What does that look like when we are on our path? The treetop people, they doing the tree. What if the wife don't want to do the trees no more? What does
What
that
is
look like for them?
again? What does that look like? Again,
Yeah, like, what does
did
that look
you,
like for? So I
and
think
I
I think
and I
that
think
how it should be a frame, like a framework for your marriage, like an outline, just a blueprint.
well, yeah.
So
I
it won't.
mean,
It's like the
I
what do
mean,
you call that? It's
what
like
you
a
call them got
mediator.
divorced? Yeah, what you call them got divorced in 2 weeks. So
Giselle
uh,
and Tom. They was like,
yep,
that's over.
yep. Greedy in laws. Bill Gates kids must have that planned out. They might. Is there a specialized financial planner for divorce? Maybe only billionaires have it. No, I think a lot of people have that. I think people just don't think about it. I think there are people out there that can take care of that. I think people don't think about it. I mean, that is what the prenup is for, though, right?
The
Um,
prenup is for so many things. What if your parents get sick? Like, it's just the mediator when y'all in love and y'all thinking about, and it makes you ask the hard questions. What if one of our parents gets sick? Can my mama come stay? I was dating somebody who told me their mama was a package deal. Like, whatever you think is, she coming to stay with us if this is what we're gonna do. And I was like,
just saying,
yeah.
just putting it out there. My thing is just to make sure that you all are fully aware what your options are. And again, when talking about finances, a lot of people don't like to talk about finances. Like I've heard some men say, and I've heard some women say it too, that no man will ever know how much I bring home, and I heard some men say no woman will ever know how much I bring home. Right? So I don't know. I don't know how why you wouldn't know how much money your spouse makes. I don't know why that is even like a thing. I don't know. I don't know. I have questions on that.
I mean, I mean, what if, like, all right, Evelyn was like, if his mom is young, that's like in 40 years. What if y'all have a baby? Like, I have so many friends that had kids and their parents lived in different states, or it's just their mom, and their mom was like, I'm moving to your state. You know, it's different reasons. Like, what if you have help? What if you need some help? And it's easier for one of you guys' mothers to come and help y'all with your kids instead of hiring help.
Evelyn said they can be there temporary and they got to get out.
So silly.
Evelyn, Evelyn is saying they could be there 3 years and be out. That's what she's saying. You don't need to be there 40 years. I don't need
Yeah,
my mom in the house.
I know for a fact my mom is too independent for, like, she don't want nobody in her mix. Like, no, I may stay down the street, but she don't want to stay. She only come and stay for 2 days here.
Did she have the first right refusal for 50% that he was entitled to of her business, or could he have offered his 50% of his? She would have to buy him out.
Yeah, because what happened is, Robert, from that story, is that they were both working and they didn't have anything, and they were young, they didn't have anything, and
They still
she,
young. They ain't but
huh?
30.
Well, I mean, they
They
were still
still
young, but younger. And
younger, yeah.
she had a job, he had a job, but they were investing in real estate just for investments. And then she really got into it. But she was a financial planner and wrote a book and stuff of that nature. But she ended up replacing her job income with the business income, and it became a full
And
time thing. But they
but
were
the
married.
business wasn't just real estate. The business is was she Honey Money Rachel is her name. And she wrote that book, but I think her business was
She wrote
financial.
another book after that. However, they had some investments. That was her business. And after they got married, it became a marital asset. And
This her
so
website
anything
right here.
during your marriage, like, it could be a like, they got an evaluation. And so anything that grew after that marriage, he was entitled to 50% of.
This is her website right here. Ready to set your financial SHIT together. I'm on a mission to empower female millennials control of their financial futures. Let let it go. Let's get to know one each other. Subscribe to my newsletter, and then she got programs. Right, get your financial basically together. Find and analyze rental property boot camp, women on fire mastermind, and one-on-one coaching. And then she has her blog, right? And so then this is where she goes into her articles and so forth and so on, and her books, Money Honey, The Passive Income, Aggressive Retirement. This is her book out here. So this one came out 2019. This book came out, Money Honey, came out. I don't see a date. I may be missing it, but I don't see it right now. I'm not seeing the
And one
date.
of her things, Robert, was basically like, you know, she didn't get a prenup, but when you're young and you are growing, because we all evolve, you don't know that you're going to build a real estate empire or whatever business that you go into. Um, and so it was just one of those things where it was like, we didn't know we were going to have this, but he was going in one direction and I was going in one direction. And where we are at in life, the compromise was too long. Like it was too vast for her, and she didn't want to wait. So I don't know if she decided to get divorced. He decided to get divorced, but
She did,
she and he was not feeling that.
and
Go
she
ahead. If it's your first, who's first time here? Like we do in a meetup. Who's the first time checking out Howie Lennox? If it's your first time watching Howie Lennox, go ahead and put a 3 in the chat. I'm curious on this chilly day. And it's Christmas Eve. This is what happens when you don't have no kids. I guess Christmas Eve. What are you guys doing?
this is her Instagram. 20K a month passive income. They had 35 homes, so
I'm happy to be here too, Afri. Yeah, I was looking at something on Instagram, and it was one of those little word puzzles. Like the first couple of words that you see, the first 4 words that you see will be your affirmations for the year. And I saw gratitude, which I live in. I'm living gratitude. I'm so thankful. Connection with you all. Connection, strength, and love. I love you, friend.
mm,
I love you, our community. I love it.
mm. So are you ready to get started?
No, I'm never ready to get started. I thought we were already started.
No, we're not.
We're not started.
Mm-mm.
We're not started. I think we
So
started already.
we could talk about it and then we can watch part of the video.
Okay.
But I wanted to bring this up on the last video, but we could talk about it now because it still applies to your life in general.
Mm-hmm.
So the topic is this guy. His name is I guess Rob Dydick Dydeck. I guess
Mm-hmm.
that's how you want to say, or Direct. The D may be silent. I'm not sure. Anyway, he made millions by tracking every minute of his life. Now, the question is, how do you track your time? Like, how are you tracking your time? And I wanted to really dive into that, especially coming for next year. Um, if you are interested in like where you spending your time in learning, where you're spending your time in reading, where you're spending your time doing throughout the day, eating, gym, how do you track your time? And I know Dee has some tools that she used to
I'm like,
track
I
her
check in with
time.
Taco, but I hadn't been using her lately.
Right. So, but I did want to mention that before we got started into the video so that you could see how this person was tracking their time. And so you just have an idea of time trackers, right? Um, and some of the things, let me see if he has the why of why he tracks everything. So I'll probably start there. It's at the 53-minute mark. But tracking your time. So I went and looked up some time trackers, Clockify, Toggle.
I got, I
Um,
think you can do it in Podio. They have the Pomodoro.
yeah, so time tracking. So again, Clockify, Toggle is one right here. Um, Another one you could just probably use a Google calendar to track your time. Like, hey, on this date at this time, it's when you study to send you alerts and track your time. Let me see if they got something in here like a plug-in. See, track time in Google Sheets or calendar. Yeah, so yeah, they got a template here, Google time track. You can probably add, yeah, how to add times and calculate blah blah blah. How to use Google Sheets for time tracking. The time doctor right here. Click on a timer button on the top of the Google Sheet to track your time, so you can use Google Sheet to track your time, right? Where you're spending time saying you're putting an hour aside, and this is your hour that you're going to do whatever it is that you're going to do. What ends up happening is you end up with a report of your daily task or your weekly task or your yearly task of everything that you've done for the year, because you want to be able to track to see where you may be spending too much time at, right? A lot of you have smartwatches, smartphones, so you're always connected, your tablets and so forth, right? But now, here's the other part of that. Just because you track the time doesn't mean you're executing within that time as
It's
well.
not meaning you're being productive in that
Yeah,
time.
you gotta have some type of accountability, right? I think having going forward in 2023, I think we should probably have like accountability partners or maybe an accountability group, even if it's just to meet once every 2 weeks or every week. And we do that on Wednesdays when our meetups, but we just don't talk about what we accomplished for the week. We're not doing that, or what we accomplished for with our time, like maybe 2 hours we have for reading a book. I gotta get that book. Let me see if I can look it up. It's a new book that I bought. Let me look at my orders here real quick. So I can see if that book is on here. Okay. No, that book ain't on here. What is it? 6 Steps to Seven Figure. Let me see. Yeah, it's this book right here. I hadn't started reading it yet. But this is the book. Pat Hiban, 6 Steps to Seven Figures. Right. Came out in November. You can check it out and so forth. Right. But let's get into this video here of the why. He was like, here's his name is Rob, and he talks about how he tracked every minute of his life, for to make hundreds of millions. So I rebooted my machine. I'm gonna start with the intro, and then D, let me know if you can hear. Let me know if y'all can hear.
Okay.
Um,
No,
all right, so you can't hear with that, huh?
no.
All right, let me go back. I rebooted my machine too. All right, let me know if you can hear that.
Tweaked it and replicated it to a
Yeah.
huge level, which is why he's been able to have some.
All right, so let's pull these chapters out over here. We're gonna start at 53 as to why Rob tracks everything. So this is a bigger pockets one. So let's go here.
Don't change. You don't get around it. You can't cheat your way through this. Now, another thing that you're very, very big on that I think is incredibly valuable to share, just like what we talked about, is rather than just making sure you invest your money into scarce resources that are not easily replicable, like a coin you could just create on your own, is the understanding that your other scarce resources are your time and your energy. You cannot just create more energy or more time. You have what you have, and they have a huge impact on the quality of life you're living. You mentioned that several times. How do I optimize my quality of life. Can you tell us what your system is like for making sure that you get the most out of the other resources you have other than just money?
I mean, look, I kind of look at my entire life as one big integrated system, right? And that system is basically exchanging time and energy for everything. And so the first thing that I did is I began to look at my life as this ongoing daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly rhythm. And I began to design my time. Right. And it eventually scaled to the point today where I track every bit of my time and tag it, and it pumps into a dashboard. So I could tell you exactly where I spend every single hour of my life over the last 3 years. Right. And what that does is when you get to that level of designing time and then continually optimizing time, time slows down for you. And now you understand the value of your time in a very clear and deep manner that it makes it so much easier to say yes and no to things because you're looking at it through the lens of first, second, and third order consequences for committing to something beyond just committing to just going, I'm going to go to this movie tonight versus I'm going to start this new company. Okay, what is the time long term that this is going to take from me? But if I design my time, track it all, and understand it, that is then calibrated through qualitative and quantitative data. So every single day I track how I feel 0 to 10 about my life, my work, and my health. And by putting a number to how I feel about my life, my work, and health, this now gives me over the long term insight to what things would pull and take energy from the quality of my life through the lens of what's happening in my work, how I'm taking care of myself, and what's going on in my life. And if you can imagine, I've done that since 2014, and like my numbers used to be so low, and I would see these same things that were constantly bringing me down, and I just slowly began to get rid of them and optimize my time against my energy, and then became a more evolved happier human being. And then along that way, I began to see like, oh man, if I stay committed to my health, the results are a much more organized, efficient use of my time and higher qualitative numbers. So I began to track in my every single day. Did I get up at 5? Did I brain train? Did I meditate? Did I get in the gym? Did I eat clean? Did I take my supplements? And did I not drink?
All right. So you heard him tracking every bit of his time since 2014. That's a lot of commitment.
I wonder
But
if
once you,
that's when Big passed.
well,
You see
who?
the guy holding his baby in the back. His name is Rob Deirdre. I forgot Durdick. He's a
Mm-hmm.
skater, but they had a show on MTV, and that was
Oh
his
yeah,
partner
yeah,
in
yeah, yeah,
crime.
yeah. Oh yeah, I
Hmm?
remember that. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah,
So I wonder, can someone put in the chat if they track that time that way, and if they have, how efficient has it been for you? I knew he looked familiar.
yeah. Robin Big was the show.
So um the other thing that what he just he mentioned, he just said something that I wanted to look up.
Brain
Uh
Train.
yes, Bang Train. How you know?
Brain Train. Do a
Brain
Brain Train.
Brain Train. Smart Games Brain Train. Brain Train. Brain exercises. Brain training. You know what? This company has been around here. They've been hiring too. Lumosity have been hiring. Discover what you can do with your mind. Get started, no purchase necessary. You care about your brain. Train the skills that matter, right? Scientific rigor, made fun, daily exercise for your mind, brain training tailored, right? So some of you may need games like this, especially those that are getting older, even your parents and stuff. I won't mention nobody on this live that may need this, but this helps, right? You say you don't track anything, right? Right. So this is what I want. And this is why I mentioned this because I had been studying. I need to get back to it for a couple of things, right? But again, tracking your time, when do you study, sleep, um, all those things. Like, what does that look like for you? And how do you fit in your relaxation time, your care time, all of that, tracking all that time. It will help you out because maybe you need to reduce something, and maybe you need to do more of something, and maybe you need to take something out, right? But you got to keep up with what you're doing every single day.
And I think
um
the easiest way to do that for people that don't track time and it's just like you think it's something else that you have to do, the best way to do it, I think, is just to start with a piece of paper and put the days of the week on that piece of paper, Sunday through Monday, however you want to start your week, and you time block it. Like, I think I showed you this before, how I time block it. And I put the days of the week at the top and then the hours of the day on the side like a grid, right? And then what I do is I put in what is mandatory every day. So I got a job. So I put that in there as a time block. And I even put my lunch in there for work, which it varies, but I put that time in there um, as available, right? And then I see what times that I have left. What time do I have before that I can do something? What time do I have after to do something? And that helps you plan. If you got a mandatory church meeting on Sunday, or you have women in Linux every Wednesday from 8 to 10, put those chunks in there, and then that way you can see the gaps in your time and how to fit everything in. So when people ask you, do you have a meeting, or can you meet, or you want to put in an extra hour a day of studying, you can now see those little gaps in time blocks and move them accordingly. You put your mandatory stuff in there first.
so Adrian and Natasha, I'm attacking.
So you don't do it.
I'm attacking.
Don't feel attacked. This is a safe space, and we're here to learn.
I'm attacking. Uh, Now that I've attacked, what are you gonna change about it? Let's ask that. Like, what are you gonna do that's different, right? And I just wanted to I wanted to start the show off with that so that you all can be looking over some items, be looking over some applications that can help you with that. That's the reason why I wanted to start there. That's the reason why I wanted to start there. Let me see. Um, where else do we want to go next? Hold on, I'm bringing it up. Hold on. All right, so we'll come back to him, but I do want to talk about that. All right, I do want to talk about that. All right, so all right, here comes the hard stuff. So we're gonna get into this. We're gonna get into this particular video. It's real a short clip, and then we're gonna get into some cloud ops and cloud ops and cloud DevOps. I want to pull this up because in this video, we kind of go back to our first show, but it talks about what businesses would you acquire and how to acquire those businesses and what to look for. But it also in this, I want you to think about what skill sets do you have for that. So let me click that in, and then we'll get started real quick because it's gonna pop right up here.
The very first thing that we're going to do is say, what industry are we going to do, right? So in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see it says industry. So the places that have the highest ROI or return on investment right now are healthcare and biotech. So if you like that stuff or have any skills, connections, or desire to work in that area, that's a great area to work in. business services, and I'm going to expand that to generally all services. This is where I spend a whole lot of time. I love business services. I love information tech.
So I'm gonna stop right there. So when he was talking about healthcare, and I think the healthcare and biotech, from our standpoint, we need to be looking at, well, what kind of skill sets do you need to work in healthcare, right? And when I say healthcare, that's such a wide range, from research to compliance to infrastructure to um, teaching to nursing to even long term care, uh, even assisted living facility, right? What does that look like, right? When we're talking about, and we know healthcare is going to always be around as long as we got animals and humans. Healthcare is going to always be around. When we look at services, w- someone providing a service for something, it is someone providing a service for care, someone providing a service for dentistry, or someone providing a service to transport you to those locations. Those are just ongoing things. So when you look at, when you're listening to this, it's not just the business of being in it, but it's also the businesses that are centered around or adjacent to those industries, right? So let's get back to it. I hope that made sense.
Financial services, not so much. You can see manufacturing is in there as well, wholesale and distribution, and then materials and energy. And energy is a growing, fast, important thing, particularly with all the things between the Russia and the Ukraine and the supply of fuel and things like that.
And we just saw the 1.6 trillion that got passed, the bill that got passed, 50 billion going to the Ukraine, to the war of Ukraine. So again, when we're looking at across the landscape, where are you trying to fit in at? What, and how long are you trying to stay in the industry? Is it 10 years, 20 years, 50 years? What does that pattern look like? When are you trying to retire, and how much money are you trying to save up for, or at least have working for you for your retirement? All right, so that's enough for that one. Let's get to the nit in our grit. I need to bring that back up. How many people have ever heard of cloud ops? Cloud ops. Put in the chat if you ever heard of cloud ops. I want to look this up too. Because it's a video for this one. I don't want to look at the thing. Mm, Oops. See.
No sound.
Oh no, it shouldn't be.
Oh, okay.
Shouldn't be any sound for this one. Not just yet. Never heard of it. All right. So we're gonna look at this video because there is, and it has been for a while, a trend of cloud ops versus dev ops. And when I say cloud ops, cloud optimization, DevOps also, as well as uh architecting in the cloud and understanding cloud patterns. And this is going to be a very, very technical show today. um but we're going to listen to this video from the new stack, uh and you'll get to see the interviewer, and hopefully you'll have some questions and we can do a deep dive. It's meant to be interactive as well. So D, you got a chance to meet the guy from the new stack when we were in France and he was shopping for
Yes.
his wife. Yep. He was shopping for his wife for some perfume. So this is a video one, the new stack is from him. So we're gonna get into this video. All right. Automation for cloud optimization. Here we go. Let me back it up. You can see I was watching it. I hadn't quite finished it yet, but let's get into it.
You're watching the New Stack Makers, a podcast for people who develop, deploy, and manage at scale software. For more conversations and articles, please visit thenewstack.io. Now on with the show.
Spot by NetApp enables cloud operations teams to deliver scalability, performance, and security for cloud infrastructure and applications at the lowest possible cost through continuous automation and optimization combined with deep visibility and governance. Learn more at spot.io.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the New Stack Makers podcast. I'm Heather Joslin, features editor of the New Stack, and today we're going to be talking about CloudOps, which is, in this case, stands for Cloud Operations. What does it mean to be an ops engineer in a time when your network might be distributed on a cloud or several clouds or clouds and on-prem or clouds on-prem and the edge?
And that's the difference between cloud ops and cloud dev or cloud development. There's a difference between those two and SRE, and then there's also a difference between cloud ops, cloud devs, SRE, and it's very subtle. And then there's a difference between cloud DevOps, and it's very subtle. And we're gonna get into that today. I'm just giving you how because some of you are very good at programming, some of you are very good at just cloud stuff, and then some of you are a mix between the two, and then some of you just want to program. So we're just gonna walk down these different paths today, so you get an understanding, right? So let me see if I can speed her up here. Okay, yeah, she starts talking right after that, so that's okay. So we only got like a couple of seconds to sit through the intro, so let's go.
The possibilities are endless. And how are large organizations thinking about ops and changing their thinking to align with the needs of cloud native? We're joined today by Mecca Williams, principal engineer of Spot by NetApp. Hi, Mecca.
Hi, great to be with you.
It's great to have you. Mecca, can you tell us a little bit about Spot by NetApp and what you do there?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a bit of a veteran here at NetApp.
So does anybody know who NetApp is? Let's stop there first. So NetApp is your storage. Really, they're mainly storage, right? So NetApp has their NetApp arrays for storage. They have different types of storage, whether it's block storage, SSD storage, just different types of storage that usually you'll be using on the back end for your databases. You have NetApp in the cloud and so forth, right? And she's a principal engineer for a particular group called Spot at NetApp. So let me pull up NetApp too, so you know, because some of you may have never ever heard of NetApp. I used to play with NetApp back in the day. So NetApp right here, data management solutions for the cloud. They were at reInvent. You can go follow them on their own channel. So cloud services, hybrid cloud solutions, and on-prem storage, right? I dealt with their on-prem storage. Using used to be called ONTAP in Action. You can download it so that now that you can create LUNs. So you never know what a storage unit looks like. So we look at NetApp storage. And we're gonna pull up some images here. All right, so a NetApp could look like this, right? Your fastest storage right here, right? It could be a big system like that. It could be a small system like this one. It really depends. Usually you'll usually find NetApp backed with VMware or something on-prem or something of that nature, right? The next thing too is then NetApp can be treated as iSCSI. It could be treated as a set of lungs and attached to a particular. When I say a lungs, logical unit I think it's logical unit numbers. That was that right? Let me see. Logical unit something. Let me see. I forget what it actually stands for. Let me see if they got it here. Luns. Q trees, volume, luns, and file. Luns are the basic unit of file storage, right? On tap. This is dealing with NetApp products. So we'll go down the list here. Volumes. Volumes can contain file system in a NAS, right? In a NAS, NAS. Is
We can't hear you, Sam. You went out for a minute.
oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, a volume contains the file system in a NAS environment and a LUN in a SAN environment. So in a NAS, network attached storage, meaning I got this storage unit. I'm gonna assign it an IP. And it's gonna be accessible by IP address. You're gonna have part of like a web front end where you can log in and you can carve it up. QNAP, Synology, are ones that come to mind, or your external storage units, your external drives come to mind if you're plugging in, getting via IP, right? And then your SANs are usually connected via fiber on the back end or some other connection. It's not always fiber, but if you want fast storage, you want 9 times out of 10 fiber or 10 gigabit, right? 10 gigabit. All right. So LUNs are a basic unit of storage in a SAN configuration. You usually log into a web front end. You'll take it. You'll carve out how much space you want. Create a volume. From that volume, you'll create a smaller LUN, and then boom, you'll go from there. Yep. So again, I just want to give you an overview, and this is really what you get right here. So on NetApp, right? On NetApp, you got your aggregate, then you'll create like a flex volume, and then you'll have a LUN or a set of files, right? Then just showing you what you're able to do with that, right? And your sizes on these can be however you want. You can have a 5 gig flexible LAN, you can have a 20 gig flexible volume, a 30 gig, whatnot. And then you can create smaller LANs. So you may have like 50 gigs on a flexible volume, and you may create 10 gig LANs that can be shared out to different uh, VMs or different bare metal machines or different devices, right? So this just want you to keep that in mind when we're talking about NetApp, right? So now let's go back over here because she's working at NetApp for automation for cloud optimization. Now we're talking about NetApp in general. We didn't talk about Spot. So let's look at Spot at NetApp. So you can really get some context here. So Spot at NetApp, spot.io is the website. So one spot for cloud ops, visibility, automation, and continuous optimization for all cloud operations. They also have spot security as well too, right? So simplify and automate cloud operations, deliver applications faster and more reliability, and maximize the value of the cloud investment. Our cloud ops solution includes cloud management and governance, infrastructure automation and optimization, open source data applications, and cloud security posture management, right? So that's what spot.io, and then they got their different resources and products here, right? So let's get back to the video. So now you got some general context about NetApp, SANs, LUNs, flex volumes, carving them out, aggregates, and then you have an idea of what Spot does. And now we're going to listen to the principal engineer um, at NetApp for Spot.io. All right, so now you got some background, and we're talking about cloud ops.
Celebrated 16 years.
Wow.
I've been around a little while. And for those that don't know, NetApp is a 30-year veteran in data management services, providing data management services. And, our traditional solutions are for on-premises data centers and the like. And we've, in recent years, been expanding that portfolio so that rich history and that expertise that we've built up in storage efficiency and high-performing storage solutions, and bringing that into cloud environments. And so Spot by NetApp is part of our portfolio that's focused on helping folks be really lean and efficient in the cloud, both with resource utilization and cost, and really responding to more modern applications. So
all right, so being very lean with optimization, with cost, picking the right storage for the right workloads, being able to scale the right storage for the right workloads at that point in time, archiving. When I say archiving, I mean history. Like, hey, I want to offset this. I don't want to spin this up, and I don't want to archive all my data in the cloud. I may want to archive my data on prem and have a direct connect with the cloud where I may want to spin something up or get access to it, right? But I don't want to pay storage in the cloud when I can pay storage locally in my data center for that, right? And not spend that money inside the cloud, right? So just different ways to look at things when we're talking about this.
I'm very excited about the acquisition and where we're headed.
We've got one more thing before we get started in our conversation. Our conversation today, this episode is sponsored by Spot by NetApp. So let's jump in. It's a big topic. Let's start with a fundamental question. What are some of the biggest ways in which operations is different when your applications are running on the cloud?
So, of course, it depends on the architecture of your application. And there are so many things that can be different. But, the cloud is this consumption-based resource. It's shared. And while it's important to understand your application needs, no matter where it runs, it's increasingly important in the cloud. You really have to understand at a granular level, what resources your application needs, how it responds to changes in the environment. This is a governing factor in how reliable and performant your application is. And in addition, the cloud's attack surface is completely different, and it could be more complex in some cases. So you really have to be mindful of the solutions you put in place to secure your application and all the proximal data.
All right, so who's been keeping up so far? Does this make sense so far, right? How did the actual design and architecture designer, so cloud architect, there's an AWS architect, there's a Azure architect, there is a GCP architect. Oh, why do you bring that up? I bring this up, and we're gonna get back to it, but I just want to put thoughts in your head about this. I am going to bring over this one here because now we're talking about cloud design and patterns. All right, so let me pull this up right here. Cloud design and patterns. All right. So here we go. What are AWS cloud design patterns? And I'll bring up the stuff for Azure and GCP as well. The description of cloud design patterns, the list of cloud design patterns from basic to patterns for high availability, for patterns for processing dynamic content, uploading data, relational databases, batch processing, operation and maintenance, and for network. Right, and I'm not going to go through all of these here. I just want to give you what when we talk about optimization and ops. Well, I should say ops, operations, and optimization. And when we're talking about being a cloud architect or just an architect in general, understanding what your role is and what your job is, right? What your role is and what your job is, right? So again, patterns for processing dynamic content, and if it's sharing, if it's replica, URL rewriting, cache proxy, schedule scale out pattern, patterns for processing static content, web storage, cache distribution, patterns for uploading data, patterns for relational databases. So they go into a very lengthy detail on that one. And then over here on this one, I'll pull this over. This goes into cloud design patterns explained simply. And I'm going to talk about that after this video. I'm just putting the fillers out there, putting things in your head, and then we'll get back to it, right? So let's pull this back over to here. And then let's get back to the new stack conversation. I don't want to stray too far.
What would you say are the components of a cloud ops organization?
So if you think about DevOps as a culture, and I don't want to be too preachy here, but this culture of being lean and collaborative and breaking down silos and being really efficient, it's kind of applying that culture all across all of the operations that are required to operate it in the cloud. So you have things like FinOps, making sure you have a good financial strategy. DevOps proper, right? Making sure your software supply chain is intact. SecOps, data ops, like all of these operations being really lean with your process and tasks that you need to operate in the cloud efficiently.
It might also be good for us to sort of go back just a little bit. I've heard so many different definitions of DevOps. Mm-hmm. How would you describe? What is DevOps, Mecca?
Oh gosh, yeah, this is a great question. I love this. So let's see. My definition is kind of wordy. I'll be concise, but it really is this culture of collaboration, this shared responsibility across all the teams that are involved, from the planning phase to the deployment phase, for getting these teams working together with the shared goal of getting increased value and with high quality to the customer.
All right, so DevOps, right? And one, thank you for that shout out. Glad you love the podcast. Now, all right, so when we're talking about this whole definition of what DevOps is, SecOps, DevSecOps, SecDevOps, everybody, again, a play on words. Really, it is about collaboration across different groups, whether it's finance, whether it's security, whether it's uh, uh even compliance, right? Or dev, right? We want to be able to incorporate everything that is needed to enable the customer, right? And we want to move fast as well too, right? But in order to do that, there's some things that need to take place. One, you got to be able to communicate. Two, you got to understand what you need to do. And three, you need to clearly define what those steps are so you can move. You don't have to have the big picture in order to get the task done, but you do need to have the big picture and then smaller tasks to get the big thing done, right? But when you're moving, you're not like, oh, I'm trying to do all these things in one. I'm just trying to do these little small things in one. So I think that's something that you all need to keep that in mind as well too, and understand, not just from a DevOps perspective, understand from a customer perspective. Like, what are you trying to enable the customer to do? How fast do you think you can do it? Do you know what you need to do, and do you have the right people that's on the team to do it? All right. So how many people in here this is all foreign to you? Put a 1 in the chat if this is all foreign to you. I just want to make sure. Put a 2 in the chat if it's not. Put a 2 in the chat if it's not foreign to you. This foreign to you?
Nope, it is not foreign to me.
Just want to make sure that we all understand. And um, I also advise you to go out and check Mecca out. I forget her last name. It's not on here either. It's on my web page. Hold on. Her last name is Mecca Williams. Mecca Williams. And she is on LinkedIn. Um, Let me bring this down. Get out of screen mode here. Here is her LinkedIn. Here is Mecca Williams. Focus on finding new and innovative ways to get the best out of cloud. She's out of Raleigh area. Principal engineer. Before that, she was a senior engineer. She was also a software design engineer. She used to work for Sony. She used to work for Nortel, right? So there you go. You got a little bit of history on who she is, right? Some interviews that she has done as well too, and some other interviews she's done on YouTube. So again, check her out. She went to Georgia Tech, and then I guess she's been working at NetApp ever since. Probably, let me see, because see, 16 years. Oh no, this may be like her Georgia Tech years, and then Raleigh. I mean, then NetApp. All right. All right, so let's get back to her.
Right. So these processes, this tearing down of silos, this really working together, but being efficient as possible. And I always like to add a little bit of seasoning of continuously improving, continuously learning as you iterate through each cycle of providing that software.
Yeah, sort of a feedback loop of what's working and what isn't, and continue to iterate. What might be some of the challenges if you're running, if you're running on, in the intro I talked about, a lot of people are running on multiple clouds or hybrid situations. What are some of the challenges, particularly from an ops point of view?
Multi-cloud and even hybrid cloud, all of these platforms have a set of APIs and tools that are advertised to help you streamline processes and operations that you may need to perform in order to run your application or workload. And when you run in
so APIs, do y'all know what APIs stand for, and do you know what it is, right? And when we're talking about a multi-cloud strategy, there's some things to consider there. Give you an example of some things to consider when you're talking about a multi-cloud strategy. One of the things to consider is what tools are you going to use that's going to enable you to be in an on-prem cloud or a just a SaaS product such as your Amazon or what have you, or AWS or GCP or whatnot. But suppose you got an on-prem cloud. Suppose you have AWS Outpost, or you have Azure Stack, or you have I forget what Google calls their stack, but they have an on-prem cloud too. I think it's just Anthos is their on-prem with VMware. And what about VMware on the cloud, on-prem? How are you going to? What tools are you going to use to manage to be able to talk to all three? What who knows what particular cloud, right? We're just talking about challenges here. Who knows what particular cloud? Who knows and how to scale? What type of code are you going to use for automation between those clouds? Are you going to use the Terraform CDK? Are you going to use Terraform? Are you going to use Terraform Cloud? Are you not going to use Terraform at all? You're going to write everything in Python? What does that look like? Just things to think about when you're talking about, I got this multi-cloud, or we're doing this multi-cloud strategy. What are my tool set that I'm going to use, and who do I have in place on the team that can do these things? Or do we need to train them, or do we need to go out and hire somebody to help us get ramped up and onboarded, right?
heterogeneous environment, sometimes you incur technical debt trying to automate and standardize your processes, because there are some custom APIs and abstraction layers that can help you do this, or sometimes organizations may develop their own and then they incur this technical debt. So the complexities increase as you add different platforms to your overall data center or your environment. And so that can be increasingly complicated. And then each different surface is a different attack surface again. So really managing and being able to standardize these processes across those environments can be challenging.
A lot of these organizations are running on Kubernetes. They have containerized microservices. What role does that play in CloudOps?
Well, containers in general and Kubernetes have done a ton in the way of helping developers and businesses deliver content and fixes and enhancements to their end users more quickly. I mean, it's basically revolutionized DevOps, right? We've had to really define and get clean with DevOps in order to keep up with the pace of content delivery enabled by containerization in Kubernetes. And Kubernetes is the de facto platform for cloud native development. I mean, it's everywhere. But we know that most of the containerized applications running in Kubernetes clusters are running underutilized, right? And anything that's underutilized in the cloud equates to waste.
So that's another thing is not everybody needs Kubernetes, and not everybody needs to run Kubernetes. So now you got to ask yourself, like, well, how are you going to manage those containers? Some people are using Fargate, ECS, right? So you may want to just not have the overhead and just use Fargate. Some are just like, no, just give me Lightsail, or give me just a machine in the cloud, and I'm just gonna drop this container on there, and then we're gonna just expose this to the outer ends, and I'm gonna set up two machines with two containers on there, throw a load balancer on it, and keep it pushing. Or you're just gonna use some native container orchestration in the cloud, right? So I say and some people may not even use containers. They may just have a website on a VM and keep it pushing, right? Keep it real simple, right? So how you utilize the cloud as well too, what's going to be easiest for you to scale and manage also comes into play. Does this sound foreign to anybody so far when we're talking about this?
Want to be really lean and clean and utilize resources in a very efficient manner, we have to have really good CloudOps strategy in order to do that. So understanding again what your application needs and being really efficient in running and operating.
I want to talk a little later in our conversation about cost optimization, but what can you tell me about the role that automation should play in this in a CloudOps organization?
Well, I used to do DevOps exclusively for a living, and I feel like automation is the lifeblood of all operations. We should automate everything.
Automate all the things.
Automate all the things. Exactly. But, we have the perspective that automation helps teams be more efficient. The less tasks that your workforce have to perform manually, the more time they have to spend focused on business logic and being innovative. And then automation also helps you with repeatability, and it's less error prone, and it helps you standardize. Really good automation simplifies your environment greatly. It's yes, it's really true. Automate all the things.
Then the other part about this is you can automate all the things, but then there's tech debt. You only can move so fast. Professor Ops, you say, do you think more people are going to use serverless? I think there is a certain sector that will use serverless. I don't think everyone is going to use serverless, right? I think there's a certain sector. I think your telcos will probably use it eventually. Right now they're on OpenShift, but I see them moving to serverless more. But it depends on what they need, right? If they don't need any storage, if they don't need any type of um PVC, which is just storage. So it depends on if they want to be stateless or stateful. When we're talking about the application, stateless or stateful, right? Depends on how they see themselves. That's my thought process. I think you see that on your edge computing. I think you probably see it there, but I could be wrong. I could be wrong. All right, let's get back to her.
Does it is also my understanding is that there's a role that that automation plays in just making your engineers and your developers happier because they're not having to do a lot of repetitive tasks. And I mean, is that a sort of secondary benefit in terms of automating things, using automation heavily in your operations?
Absolutely. I believe that's true. I think I read somewhere about, over the course of the pandemic, it was observed that DevOps and SREs were burning out faster than anybody else, right? So anything that can be done to help make their lives easier. And yes, if something is repeatable, if something is required to be repeatable, both to make your processes more efficient, but also to make those DevOps and SREs lives easier, it absolutely should be automated.
Easiest way to stay in tech, SRE, DevOps, CloudOps, Cloud Dev, security, cloud compliance. You'll be around for the next 20, 30 years. Now, you may get bored and want to go do something else. Right? But easily you could be around for a very long time. Yep, they close at 6. They both close at 6. Yeah. You said DevOps is boring, John, or SRE. I mean, it can be. But it can be fun too, right? It can be fun too. It depends on the company. Depends on what they got you doing.
Depends on your team.
Yeah, it depends on the customer.
Yes.
Right. Depends on the customer. If you're onboarding a customer, you're creating an environment for the customer and you're getting them started, or you're doing a self-service model and they need to follow some templates, some rules, and some guidelines. It really depends. Easy work in terms of once you get in the flow of it, it becomes things. But if you want to program, you can go program and just make APIs all day, right? Or make tool sets all day. Just something you can still do. All right, let's get back to it.
I've also heard, I mean, I sort of said in the intro too that in this case, CloudOps refers to cloud operations, but it also can refer to cloud optimization. How do you define that, and how does that overlap with, say, site reliability engineering?
Cloud optimization, I think, is crucial to being successful with CloudOps. Like, this should be the goal of your CloudOps strategy. Again, with the focus of our Spot by NetApp portfolio, as a good example, like we want you to be as successful and get the most out of your cloud wherever you are. And so part of that strategy is making sure you're running with the right instance types, right? Or that you are mindful of any waste, that you and that you continue this process, that you continually optimize and try to be leaner and more efficient, each time you iterate through your workflow. And so,
so you've seen this if you logged into Google and you created an instance and you don't get a lot of utilization out of it, it'll tell you, hey, you can save $4.23, or you can save $3.80. We're just gonna, do you want to, downgrade? You can save money by just turning it off. Like, do you want to downgrade and just go from there? Like, you'll see that. You'll see that in AWS. You'll see that in Azure too, right? So you may not be running heavy workloads with that instance that you may have up there, or the instances, and it may offer the optimization for you. There's something on the back end that's optimizing that for you, but you can also optimize your own cloud and not wait for it to tell you as well.
Is, I think, is the end goal, is always the goal of any good cloud ops strategy, and this regular evaluation of how am I getting as much, am I as good as I can be. Cloud continually innovates too, so there's always more and new opportunity to optimize. And I think cloud optimization is a complement to SRE. Right. SRE work tends to take a software approach to the operationalization of, what's required to keep services up and running with high quality. So, good and strategic cloud ops that's resulting in good cloud optimization, again, makes SRE's lives easier.
What can you tell me about what your organization has learned from its customers and how they're thinking about cloud ops?
So I think we observed a big rush to the cloud, especially with the pandemic when everybody went home, right? So where migration, I think, was the initial strategy, just get there, and utilize cloud infrastructure.
And so that was a big thing. So everybody was like, hey, rush to the cloud. Everybody, we hiring all the people with all the cloud certs, and we're going to get rushed to the cloud. And then they were like, hey, how do we take this monolith application that we've been running for the last 20 or 30 years and do microservices? And how do we build containers? And how do we secure that? And what's going to be the best option? So now we see a migration to the cloud, but we also see a migration to a multi-cloud strategy or a hybrid environment where people are like, I'm not going to put everything up there because we know it's going to cost us. And I don't want to send the big truckload in to shift all this data onto something and put it on this truck, and then they're going to take it out to this data center and then make it possible for me to have my stuff here and so forth. Right? Not everybody is doing it. Some people are like, nah, we good. Who you're gonna see these cloud ops and cloud optimization really a lot, where this is just a FYI for you. This is a location where you can eat for years. Remember last week when I was talking about your kings and your aristocrats? Those are the people that are going to need cloud architects or architects in general, for onboarding, for acquiring businesses. Your hedge funds, your advertisement places are very keen on, we acquired the advertising company, or we created this new tool and we need to optimize for it. You want to talk about where you're going to go? That's where you're gonna go. You going this is where you're gonna eat at, right? Where you're gonna eat at for architecting, you're gonna eat at for optimization, you're gonna eat for security, you're gonna eat for, and then just DevOps, just in general across all of those. Those are across. And when I say across all of those, meaning across on-prem, a hybrid, and then in the cloud. And this is where you're gonna find companies that are gonna go to the cloud on certain applications, but not other ones. You're gonna find them, they're gonna acquire a company. Think about Broadcom acquired VMware. What does that mean? So somebody has to onboard VMware to Broadcom's inter network, and what does that transition look like? And who is Broadcom partnered with? Is Broadcom partnered with AWS? Are they do they have their own cloud, their own internal stuff? So now there's a transition, and then sometimes they like just leave them be and just give them some domain name, but their desktops need to change to this, but we're just gonna leave their customer facing stuff alone, right? But these are the things that you're gonna see a lot of people happen, and here's where the actual multi-cloud strategy comes into play. I acquire a company, and that company has been, we're on GCP, but that company is on AWS and Azure. Now, how do we look at that company? Do we take them off of AWS and Azure and move them to GCP, or do we leave them as is? And somebody has to maintain what they already have, and then we have to come up with an actual path forward to see what applications and workloads need to be moved to our template in our cloud. So now we've introduced two clouds, and now we've introduced a whole new set of requirements and things that they may need to meet. They may need to be on AWS for PCI compliance, because they do work with a company in Italy, and that company in Italy was like, yo, we don't do nothing on Azure or nothing like that, so we need to stay here, right? So then now you faced with these different workloads and how to optimize against across all these different workloads, and should you be migrating? So now we're doing some architecting, we're talking about compliance, we're talking about security. You're also talking about what type of talent does the team have in order to do that, right? Do you have enough people in place to onboard these customers and let them go run it and do their thing? What does that look like? So this is the again, cloud architecting, pattern and designs, and optimization. For those of you that are not sure where to go and where to turn, these are those things, right? These are those things. So let's get back to it.
We're seeing customers kind of revisit and start to look at ways to make better use of the cloud. So these strategies are being updated where it didn't make sense to go, lift and shift to the cloud. Maybe it was monolithic applications. Maybe it was just, for convenience to get there faster. They may have just moved processes and applications maybe too hastily, and now they're revisiting. So, we see some organizations that are trying to modernize their applications further to make better use of the services that are available in the cloud. The cloud is getting more complex as they grow and mature in their journey. And so they're looking for ways to simplify their operations and, as always, keep their costs down, keep things simple for their DevOps and SREs, not incur additional technical debt, but still make the best use out of their cloud wherever they are.
We definitely heard about companies, organizations moving to the cloud during the pandemic because, as you said, everybody went home. What were you seeing as some of the most common mistakes people were making in terms of operations when they rushed to the cloud?
So I think this shift from CapEx to OpEx really caught people. I know it caught me in my old DevOps work. So not really understanding steady state, sunny day, what that cost looked like, what that resource utilization looked like. And so they really didn't have a baseline. And so those first cloud bills, I'm sure, were shocking because you don't get a cloud bill when you run on your on-premises environment or even your private cloud where you've already paid the cost for the infrastructure that you're using. Now, if you take those same processes and applications and workloads and you throw them in the cloud, well, you're getting charged and you go without any strategy.
You're getting charged for everything. You're getting charged for storage. You're getting charged for utilization. You're getting charged for the transfer of data. You're getting charged for what particular type of GPU you're using, what type of CPU you're using. You're getting charged for everything. Messages. You're getting charged for all those things. Virus protection. Oh, okay. We charge you for that too. Oh yeah, you need repository access. Oh, you want to use Red Hat? We're gonna charge you for that. We're gonna charge you for every single thing, right? So you get now when you get those bills. I remember seeing bills, 100K, 70K, 80K a month. I've seen bills 200K a month. All right, 200K a month, right? So that depends on the GPU, the workload, whatever, right? So you got to design to be cost efficient. When is this ramp up going to occur? How do we charge back to those teams? How do we tag and charge back to the teams, right? Who's utilizing our cloud setup? And it's a self-service model, and how we tag that and charge that back to the team so that team can get charged for that, right? So we make sure we get our money, right? We want to get our money, right? So just things to think about, right? Even on prem, you still need a charge. You still need a cost and charging model, even in an on prem, right? Because you may have 4 or 5 customers that utilize your resources. They need to be charged for that. And how do you charge them for that? How do you keep up with charging them for that? That's when you start seeing things like your OpenStack, OpenShift. But if you got your VMware, how do you charge people in your VMware environment? How do you tag and so forth, and start charging people for that SAN storage, that LUN that they're using, the number of writes from one data center to another data center. Somebody may need to be charged for that. You may be getting, you may only transfer so much data on a line, right? So these are just things to think about as from an not even just a DevOps perspective, but just as a person who's working on these things. These are questions. These are all interview questions. These are also things to think about as you are working in the environment.
And you're using on demand, you have an on demand consumption model, and you're getting charged by the minute or by the usage. That's the sticker shock, I think, was a big deal. I think that was the reason why a lot of folks decided to go back and reevaluate. The strategy, the CloudOps strategy, is so important when you make that move to make sure you don't waste money. And honestly, good CloudOps strategy, if you plan properly, that's going to benefit you even on premises. So how we get lean and really efficient, and practice good hygiene, data hygiene, and all those things, the security, all of that can benefit you on premises.
Do y'all know what she means by data hygiene? Do you know what she means by data hygiene? Data hygiene. How are we handling this data, right? Data hygiene. Right? Pull this over here so you can, when you hear these words, you should be looking them up, right? Data hygiene. Data hygiene. An introduction to processing your data. All right. What is data hygiene, right? There are points, that's where we're going on. Data hygiene procedures become crucial. Through this guide, you're going to explore data hygiene through the following points. What is data hygiene? Once you brushed up on your essential skills, check out the best practices for data hygiene. You begin with an audit, pay attention to detail, remove unnecessary information. Recognize data hygiene is bigger than one mass cleanse. Right. So here we go. What is data hygiene? In general, data hygiene refers of to all of the ongoing processes involved in guaranteeing data is clean. In this instance, clean refers to for the most part error-free data. We'll explore why data cleanliness is essential in a bit, but first, what makes it dirty? Dirty data is dirty data. Dirty data is data containing errors, whether it's outdated, incomplete, duplicated, or simply incorrect. These errors can be introduced at any point while that data is in your system, whether it was incorrectly entered initially or accidental change was made when updating your records. It's incredibly easy to introduce errors into your system and even to do so unknowingly, considering the necessity of cleaning data. So, deduping data, right? Deduping data is another one, right? You don't want to have 5,000. You don't want to have a text file named tam.txt and it's in 5,000. It's spread across 5,000 S3 buckets, right? or you get a lot of files spread across the same file spread across buckets, right? You don't want to do that. Or spread across your LUNs or your volumes or aggregates, however you want to look at that, right? You don't want to look at it. It says what information, when that information is faulty, it has a clear cost. In fact, the costs are around 3.1 trillion a year in the US for having bad data hygiene. Bad data hygiene, right? You didn't clean your data. Your data got all kind of film, all kind of errors, chip tooth, chip tooth data, uh old gnarly data, just bad data, right? So you want to practice good data hygiene as well. And I'll get this link to I won't spend too much more time on this. I want to finish this one, and then I got a few other things I want to finish off. I don't want to be on here too much longer because it's time to eat. It's time to eat. Nasty data. All right, let's finish her off. All right.
And anywhere you run your applications and workloads.
What do you mean by data hygiene? Good data hygiene.
Oh,
what's an example?
Good
of
data
that?
hygiene, right? Making sure you're using the right tier of data, making sure you're not over provisioned in the type of storage you need. You don't need to pay top dollar for high performing storage if it's just backup data that doesn't get access that often. Don't have hot storage provision for cold data. Understand what your data heat map looks like and where it needs to be the most efficient. Should you be using caches? These are all strategies that you should evaluate and understand your application needs. These are good to know on premises, but these are imperative to know when you're in the cloud. And don't waste, right? If data can be, if you can use storage efficiencies to reduce your data footprint, you should do that, right? These are all things that keep your costs down and keep you actually, keep you more green because you'll use less greenhouse gases the smaller your data footprint. And this is all good stuff to do.
Yeah. How does Spot by NetApp tackle CloudOps? Both definitions, operations and optimization.
So Spot by NetApp has really leaned into the cloud. I mean, we have a robust portfolio of CloudOps solutions. With Spot at its
I don't want to hear about talking about Spot. Let me see here. I don't think there was nothing else there. I think she goes into spot.io about that. So, all right. So we talked about Spot. We talked about CloudOps and so forth, but I wanted to pull this over so you can have a clear definition here. I looked this up, and it was like, what's the difference between DevOps and CloudOps, and are they the same or are they different? I wanted to give you this view. All right, so let me pull that back down. All right, so DevOps and CloudOps, development and operations, is a system that optimizes, or DevOps is a system that optimizes the best part of IT and development teams. DevOps focuses on continuous advancement of process and tools. DevOps empowers members to collaborate more effectively across the collective group. In the world of DevOps, automation is key, delivering agile, repeatable process to maximize the power of the final product or solution. DevOps fuels an evolving cascade of operational improvement. Now, CloudOps is simply a different way of doing DevOps. Rather than relying on any one set of on-site network server assets, CloudOps leverages powerful cloud computing tools such as AWS, GCP, and Azure. And see, CloudOps is basically the next logical extension of DevOps, and both focus on continuous operation, a process that has emerged from DevOps practices into the world of CloudOps. Differences. Here's their differences. They talk about affordability, expansion friendly, and latency tolerant, right? Affordability. Since companies have several choices among cloud-based platform, cloud providers are more motivated to compete on the quality and the price rather than worrying about maintaining an expensive network architecture or on-site teams can contract with a cloud service to provide all networking server needs, including maintenance, monitoring, and so forth. Expansion friendly, right? Cloud ops providers offer virtually unlimited storage and processing power and latency tolerant, thanks to the enhanced expandability and scalability of cloud computing. DevOps processes can leverage cloud tech to reduce latency issues and errors. Other factors considered is both and not either or, right? It's both and not either or. Platform agnostic. Every organization is different. It's all about the product, and basically they're saying do your homework, right? And so when we talk about this, cloud ops is simply a different way of doing DevOps. It instead of just when you're deploying your actual application, you don't just deploy your application onto a Kubernetes cluster. You may not need it. You may be overspending. You may could get away with a Fargate, but then that gets back into, well, what's the end goal of this particular product, which takes us full back circle back into understanding cloud patterns and designs. And also, when we're talking about cloud patterns and designs, let me I got one more right here that I want to pull up. Let me see this one here. Yeah, I actually started this and I didn't we didn't finish it. All right, so now we're ready for it. All right. Cloud designs simply explain. There are only patterns on top of patterns that affect other patterns hidden by patterns, and patterns within patterns, right? Perhaps the simplest way to describe a pattern would be a regularity that predictability repeats itself. The beauty of patterns lies in their ubiquity. From the way, I guess, organelles are arranged in the smallest of microorganisms to the way stars line up in galaxies, patterns exist everywhere, right? So one thing you talk about here, a software design pattern is a reusable solution template to commonly occurring issues. So basically, when I went back and I was talking about onboarding a customer, right? So, say you got a customer, maybe you have a set of a template that you've designed to onboard this customer who is brings in about 20 million a year, and they have these set of services that they need right now. And maybe you have a template to onboard this new customer that's similar to this customer with a little tweaking of resources, they'll be on their way. So you create these templates, and then these customers adopt that template. Basically, we can deploy this infrastructure, and then we set up some other templates for resources that they may need to adopt in order to do their deployment, right? And so it says the world first started to take note of design patterns in software in 1970. Much like the technologies they have to come to build patterns have been ever evolving, right? Building efficient and scalable software is a lot like building a brick wall. A bricklayer takes great care to ensure the pattern and the symmetry of their wall is maintained. This allows the foundation to be strong enough to support the weight of everything that is stacked on top of it. It allows the building of taller, stronger, and more scalable walls. I mean, it's supposed to be more scalable wall. Like the bricklayer, a software engineer needs to pay attention to design patterns that direct the underlying software if they are to create a solution that is both efficient and scalable. With the rising popularity of cloud computing, the focus of engineers everywhere has been shifted to harnessing the patterns that govern these processes, right? So asynchronous request and play. I'm gonna keep going, and then we'll come back to them. Command and query responsibility segregation, right? Event sourcing, retry, and I'm just going through the titles. Circuit breaker, sidecar, and that was it. That's what they gave on that one. But I showed you over here, was it right here on AWS cloud design patterns, where they talk about high availability, processing dynamic content, processing static content, uploading data, relational databases, batch processes, and networking. And you can go for Azure, you can go Azure design patterns, right? And they'll come up cloud design patterns, Azure Architect Center, right? So then they get into their stuff, where we're talking about data management, design and implementation, messaging. And so they have a catalog of patterns here as well, right? So their patterns are ambassador, anti-corruption layer, asynchronous request imply, back ends for front ends, bulkhead, cache aside, choreography, circuit breaker, claim check, compensating transaction, competing customers, compute resource consolidation, CQRS is what we were talking about earlier, deployment stamps, event sourcing, external configuration stored, federated identity, gatekeeper, gateway aggregation, and the list goes on, right? And so you can look at all these design patterns. I implore you to look at those that are looking to architect and become go down the architecture lane, understanding cloud optimization, design patterns, even if you're on prem, these are things to consider as well too. Give me your thoughts. I know some of this is sounding new to you all. I know you didn't expect to be this detailed today, but I kind of figured today we would do some detailing on some things so y'all can uh have some food for thought. D, you got some thoughts on it? You on mute?
I think it was a great way to usher in the new year,
Yeah,
remix
that's
it a
what I
little
wanted.
bit.
That's what I wanted. I
You
want
know,
y'all
I
to
was
be
able to put some notes in the chat and stuff, and so I hope people go and look up those links and do a little digging in over the holiday.
yep. Put these in the chat. I'll put these links in the chat, and you can throw those out there for you all. So if you wondered what I was doing on Wednesday, I was asleep. I fell asleep. We missed the class. I fell asleep. But also, I was also studying too. You know, that was my last class. And I would implore you all to look at these design patterns that they have here. Um, oh, you're welcome. Let me try to. I want to go back to that article. I think that's the video. I did want to look at one of the how tos, right? I want to look at one of the how tos. Is this one it? Yeah, I think this is okay. Asynchronous request and reply. Okay. So here they say when we talk about cloud applications, so this could be an interview question. This is where this is going. This could be an interview question, right? They say when we talk about cloud applications, microservices often come to mind. This is an architecture style where multiple microservices, remote APIs, or third-party services are composed to perform dedicated functions to provide a particular functionality to a client application. In such setup, synchronously processing the client request before all of the back end work is completed may not always be feasible. This is especially true in the case of long running processes. Furthermore, latency also becomes a consideration when the response to the client needs to be only a few milliseconds. So this sounds to me automatically like some type of caching could be going on here. Some type of uh, we could use Elasticsearch or something like that. This is just I hadn't read it, so I'm just still rising here, right? So it says solution. A client makes an API request. The application now offloads the work to another backend service or message queue, right? The client can poll for resources for resource process status using an HTTP GET or HTTP polling at regular intervals as appropriate for the client application. The status API returns in progress, indicating that the backend process is still running. Once the process completes, the status will return the required output or another reference to the resource. The application can also push the event notification once the process is complete without the need for the client to poll repeatedly. So let us simplify the example. Imagine you tried to make a dinner, to make dinner, and decide to place a takeout order or takeaway order over the phone at your favorite restaurant. So that's the API request. The restaurant provides you with an order number. That's the acknowledgement. You arrive to the restaurant to pick up your order. Uh, provide give them the order number, and the restaurant staff informs you that your order is still not complete. If you're particularly hungry, you might return to the reception to inquire about your order every 5 to 10 minutes. That's HTTP polling. Or the restaurant can provide you with a pager that buzzes you once your order is complete, event notification. So that's how they broke it down in comparison to a restaurant. Another one is command and query responsibility segregation. That is your CQRS. And then they go into the problem, and then what solution would you how would you solve that? How would you solve that solution, right? And they break it down. So I implore you all to look at these, because these will probably fall into your, again, design patterns, behavior, situation. How would you solve this problem and so forth, right? How would you solve this problem and so forth? And then you can look at the individual cloud like GCP design patterns, common design patterns for Google Cloud right here. And they have their list here on this page: empty responses, representing ranges, resource labels, long running operation, list pagination, right? So they have their own thing that they got on here, right? And everybody's going to be different, right? Everybody's going to be different. Let me see if there's another one that comes up. Design patterns for high volume address validation on Google Cloud, on within Google Cloud platform. In this tutorial, we will introduce you to different design patterns within Google Cloud platform, running high address, running high volume address validation, right? Architecting with Google Cloud platform, design and process. It's a 2-day instructor led course right here where they talk about that. There's also right here, Cloud Academy has some cloud design patterns. This is from 2015, but it still, helps you, look at cloud application architecture patterns, cloud application management patterns, cloud composite cloud application patterns, right? And so they go into breaking down this, and it's just good for a review. I'm not telling you to take all this to heart. I'm just giving you another option of, like, when they're looking at people for cloud architects, what that looks like. Uh what are you studying? If you look at me, let me look at Cloud Academy right quick. Um and I'll log in and I'll tell you. Let me see. All right. So in Cloud Academy, they have design patterns in Java projects, Amazon CloudFront design patterns, your CKAD, how to think like a solutions architect, Designing multi-tier architectures, advanced deployment techniques on AWS, CRDs, customer resource, right here, customer resource definitions. So I'm just giving you like what they're actually talking about. Let's click on this course here and we'll go through the syllabus. Um, I don't want the sound to go. Here we go, right here. All right, design pattern, singleton, design pattern, abstract, builder, design, prototype, adapter, bridge, flyweight, proxy, iterator, visitor, strategy, J2EE, MVC, web broker design, service locator, front controller design pattern, right? It's just a whole list of, and this is under programming when we're talking about under programming, when you want to talk about under programming design. If you want to talk about cloud design, let me see if they got cloud. Strategy and best practice when mapping designs for edge to cloud. Advanced, it's probably, it may be on the advanced AWS. Let's look and see. Immutable infrastructure. Yeah, that's your regular stuff. That's just advanced. Let's look at this. It's a 45-minute presentation. Mapping design from the edge to the cloud. Let me look at the course material. Let me look at that. All right, intelligent retail on the edge, workplace. They got a demo, resources and demo, presentation and video recordings, IoT learning path, schedule exam. Right, that's really what they got in there. But again, I gave you links. Steve posted those so y'all can look at it. Yeah, those are Java patterns. Yeah, that's the programming side, and then you got the cloud side. Um, all right, here's one on cloud architecture introduction. It's 5 minutes long. We can sit through that now, and then we'll be done for the day. I won't interrupt it.
No sound.
Oh, all right. Let me do this. Now, here's a question. How much do you all think a cloud architect gets paid?
Cloud architect is responsible for converting business requirements into a technical architecture and design that can be used as a guide for building a final solution. Cloud architects are responsible for working through complex business problems and bridging gaps between disparate teams. One day you might work with members of the technology team, including DevOps engineers and developers, and the very next day you might need to understand high-level requirements from business teams or even from the chief executive officer. As a cloud architect, it's your responsibility to come up with a solution design that uses the best suited services in a way that creates the best business outcome. Working with cloud services gives you many options. And so knowing the working detail, the advantages and the disadvantages of each of those services helps you select and combine services that get the best outcome for your stakeholders. And as a cloud architect, you may also be working on hybrid designs, which depend on connections to on-premise applications or data centers. So a cloud architect needs to have good grounding in a wide range of IT services. First, you need to be open-minded and strategic. Cloud architects need to be able to identify fit-for-purpose technologies. And as an architect, you need to be able to select the service that will create the best solution and so the best outcome. You need to be able to weigh up the benefits and consideration of a wide range of services and then make decisions based on the criteria that you've been given over what may be popular or preferred right now. You're going to need to be an effective communicator. This is perhaps one of the most important success traits for this role, in my view. Effective communicator rather than just a good communicator, because in this role, you need to be effective at describing the merits and therefore winning support for your solution with multiple stakeholders. And at times, we may be dealing with groups or individuals with very strong opinions on technology. So you need to be confident and well-researched with your solution design. You're at the center of the development process. So a cloud architect must be able to lead and influence stakeholders within the organization. Your solution may go against common patterns. It may suggest doing things in a way that's very different from how things have been done in the past, because you know that will get the best result. So you need to be able to discuss, empathize, and adjust so you can help stakeholders see why this combination of services you're proposing creates the best solution and presents the best possible outcome. With so many moving parts in the development process, a cloud architect must be able to fully understand the nuances of any business requirement. You have to understand the functionality that's needed, and you need to be thinking about the maintenance requirements for ongoing services. So you need to be able to keep a view of the overall objective and the timeline, very important, and also be able to evaluate and discuss the details of any particular service and why a specific service provides the best match to those requirements. It does help to be a good planner. As the solution manager, you need to be able to guide the development of the solution from beginning to end, and you need to be able to account and work through any roadblocks or complexities. So having been a cloud architect for many years, I think the first thing I want to point out is that your day can be very varied. You'll work with a wide range of stakeholders, so you need to be very adaptive and be able to think on your feet. That is something that gets easier over time and over the number of projects you do. And your first experiences in this role can be made easier by having a good grounding in the cloud services that you'll be working with. You'll be developing cloud adoption plans, migration plans, application design, deployment mechanisms. You'll work with business stakeholders to translate requirements into application architecture. You may automate infrastructure and build pipelines for continuous integration and continuous deployment.
So far, so good. We out here. I see the 200K, the 100K, the 120K, 175K. I'm gonna show you some numbers, and you can believe them or not, but that's where we're at.
First off, we need to have a deep knowledge of the cloud platforms and services. That's non-negotiable. You need to be an expert in these services. Having a good understanding of software design patterns will help. Having knowledge of DevOps tools and methodologies will be a big help. You need to keep up to date with everything that's coming out and understand the latest and greatest services and why that may be the best or not the best solution for this particular design. We need the ability to communicate. We need to be able to talk to diverse stakeholders about benefits, risk, and to really describe quite complex concepts to people that may have no technical knowledge. We need to be able to contextualize, empathize with stakeholders and people who have an opinion, and ultimately to be able to persuade and make people see why the solution you're proposing is the best way to do this for the business. If it sounds like this type of role suits your interests and your character traits, well, then it's just now a matter of learning the skills you need for this role. Remember, no one is born a cloud architect, okay? It is all learned.
It is all learned. All right, so let's get the numbers out here before we go, before we get up out of here. You all say that. Okay, so here's some I found between various numbers. But here is 175 an hour, full-time Monday through Friday. This one was let me see, 175 an hour. This is for 12 months. Starting expected to end for up to three plus years. Monday through Friday, 40-hour work week, remote telework. The interview is one round, 45 minutes, Microsoft Team on camera. Yeah, you is required to serve in a certified cloud architect role for the Department Unemployment Insurance Systems Modernization Project. This project is in an effort to systematically and incrementally modernize the DWD unemployment insurance systems, and through the effort of moving from on-premise to a cloud-based infrastructure within Google Cloud. So they're using GCP. So a GCP design pattern. So now you want to know what that looks like. All right. So it say 175 an hour. You're 1099. Let's go here. So we're gonna do 175 times 40. That gives you 7,000. Multiply that by 4. That gives you about 28,000 a month. You multiply 28,000 a month times 12. 336 before taxes. You hopefully you got some type of LLC set up. You got some type of way you're funding whatever. So that's where we're at with that, right? Another one that I've seen on here, you got 85 to 92 an hour. You have 138 to 175 a year. You got 149 to 189 a year. You got 136 to 169, and then you have 174 to 304, right? On W2, the other one was 1099, right? So when we look at cloud architect GDIT, 174 to 304, remote. Hopefully I can get over here and scroll. Trying to see what experience are they looking at. Let me see. They got some Kubernetes, serve as a project lead, not a people manager, must have extensive knowledge of Ansible and Terraform, AWS scripting with JSON, YAML, Python, or Bash, understand microservices, EKS, ECS, Kubernetes, 10-year, and they prefer somebody with a certification, but they don't have to have one. It is remote, and it's paying from between 179 to 304. Right. So the range varies. Right? Let me keep going here. Let me scroll down. Go to the next row here. 70 to 80, 110 to 115 for a Google Cloud Architect, level 3, 175 to 180. The list goes on. If you come up here and do a salary estimate, do anything over 165, here's when you start. You can see lead cloud data architect, cloud platform architect, cloud architect, solutions architect, IBM cloud architect. So again, it varies on those numbers there, right? So I would say anywhere from 100. I'd say really from like 150K to like 400, if you want to be honest. So depends on where you see yourself at, right? To get the cloud architect certification, you don't need all the other certs prior to that, but you may want to have the other certs, but you don't. They're not a prerequisite. So a lot of that has been lifted, so you can just go straight in and take the cloud architect, practice, study for about 3 or 4 months, and then go on about your business. And get your cloud architect and start practicing and looking at patterns and reading and educating yourself and putting into play, right? And then going from there. What's going on, Sherelle? How you doing? All right, that was it. D, I'm done. I hope this was informative for everybody.
If it
I
was
don't
informative for everybody, go ahead and put a one in the chat. It was
and
informative.
and I hope you see the numbers, right? I hope 366 floated your boat. It ain't too bad. What you think, D? 366 ain't too bad.
I mean, it ain't too bad. It's not bad at all.
366 ain't too bad.
Not too bad.
228 ain't too bad, right? So cloud patterns, cloud design patterns, cloud architect. You want to know where that money is at? You want to know what that looks like? That's just one area, right? Um, Cloud optimization is another area. Um, so just keeping you informed and like, don't get stuck on just getting the search. Understand what comes with architecting and designing solutions, right? Again, big picture, break it down to a smaller one. Your boat shot to the moon. Okay, yep. Yep. That's what we want. That's what I want to hear. I'm just putting it out here, and you can see these cloud architect. I just looked up cloud architect on Indeed. I didn't go to Dice and look it up, but you can do the same on levels, FYI, and type in cloud architect. Um, They'll probably want you to go buy a particular company, but let me see. Yeah, no match found. They just got it by the name of the positions at that company. So architect, right, look up Dice. I'm just curious at what Dice is pulling back. Um, oh, that's LinkedIn. I don't want LinkedIn. I want Dice. Let me just go straight to Dice. Just want to see if it's gonna give me some numbers. But the 175 is pretty good. You could probably squeeze a little more. You could probably squeeze another 10 to $15 out of that position. Cloud architect today. All right. Remote only. Let's look at the last 7 days. Let's only do contract work. So we got Salesforce, Cloud Architect, Salesforce, Cloud Architect, Azure, and AWS, QA automation, modernization, integration. This is in New Jersey, Azure, GCP, Cloud Solutions Architect. All right. They didn't have any numbers behind, but they just gives you some idea. Again, you can use Glassdoor if you want to, but it gives you an idea of like who has what. The ladders is another one that you can probably pull. You know what I'm saying? Like I say, I think you can pull anywhere from 2 to 4 on the cloud architect side, which ain't bad. Um, Especially when you're talking 1099, right? 175 on 1099. It's $28,000 a month. And then you gotta account for taxes, but that ain't bad, right? They'll put you in the mix, right? Now the question is what you're gonna do with it when you make that money. Because the goal, the rule of thumb is if you get 366 or 336, you're supposed to put away 25% of your cash. So you're supposed to be putting away 84,000 a year, which comes out to be 7,000 a month. You're putting in 28, so you could do that, right? So you're putting in you're saving 7,000 a month. And you could probably do more than that, right? You could probably if you you know what I'm saying, if you budgeting right, Divided by 12, 28,000. Then divide that by 2. So 14,000 a paycheck. So you could probably live off of one paycheck a month. Right? You just putting away a whole paycheck and you just living off that one paycheck, right? And I'm not including taxes in that. That's why I say a month, because you got to pay some taxes at some point. So you need to be putting the money away for taxes. So out of that 14,000, you're gonna have to put away money for taxes. So that's why I say a month, right? So whatever that looks like. Cool. So go out, study cloud design and patterns, cloud architecting. You want to know what things are at OpenShift, OpenStack, cloud architecting, on-prem, VMware, so forth, so on. Go check out go check across the books on cloud design and patterns, right? Um, I didn't pull any books because I figured you probably would want to watch YouTube first. Let me look right here. So cloud architecture patterns. Here's one right here. If you got O'Reilly, you can get this on O'Reilly, right? Let me go back. You got architecting the cloud here, cloud patterns, cloud platforms, cloud native patterns, design patterns, and native applications here. This is an O'Reilly book as well too. Patterns and practice using APIs, data, events, and streams. So I would recommend you just grab one of those books. This one came out in 2021. You could probably find a PDF form out there. Start reading them. Get familiar with this stuff. Especially for those that are looking to like continue for the next 10 to 15 years. I would expect you could probably be at a cloud architect in 3 to 5, depending on if you're in the world of dealing with cloud every single day, right? And understanding workloads, right? Understanding what the customer needs and the services that could be provided in those clouds. All right, people, it's our time. We're done. D, anything you want to add before we get out of here?
Have a very Merry Christmas. We'll probably,
Yep.
what's the date? We'll probably see you before the new year.
We probably won't see you before the new year. We probably won't be doing it.
We might not see you for the new year. I'm looking at that date. See you for the new year.
Yeah, we might
Happy
not see
holiday.
you. Right.
Happy
All right.
holidays.
Happy holiday. Everybody stay safe, be warm. Don't go outside in the cold with your shoes off and running around in the snow trying to prove a point, or blizzard or whatever's going on in your area.
Don't do it.
Stay in the house. Don't do it. It ain't worth it.
Don't do it. Drippy
You ain't
pipes.
got nothing to prove.
Drippy pipes. To stay warm, layer up.
The only thing you got to prove is prove that you can get that 28,000 a month. That's what you go do. That's what you go do. Go try to get that 28,000 a month. All right, then. We'll see y'all later. Y'all be safe.